May 6, 1975, a tornado touched down in Omaha. 3 people died, hundreds were hurt, thousands of homes and businesses were damaged or destroyed. And yet, it could have been worse.
They estimated something like 30,000 people were in front of that tornado at one time. You know, people say we're lucky. Well, sometimes I believe we make our own luck. We had a lot of people out there, a lot of volunteers, and these people, you know, they should be lauded for that because they did a darn good job. And that one patrolman that raced in front of the tornado, wow, he had more guts than a burglar. He really did. Yeah. I mean, going up there, he could have been killed. I mean,
that's retired National Weather Service meteorologist George Matuella talking to KMTV's Jim Flowers several years ago. The man with more guts than a burglar was David Campbell. We met this week at Westgate Elementary.
I hear the wind blowing, so that's kind of how everything is. It's memories blowing in the wind now.
Retired now, Omaha police officer David Campbell was on interstate duty 48 years ago.
The calls start coming in the 9/11 and they advised report of tornado, but we can't confirm it.
David traveled west on I-80 approaching 72nd Street.
And I look and here's this massive tornado crossing the interstate right in front of me when I come over the hill.
With no reliable way to track it on radar, dispatch asked David to follow the tornado.
Came off just enough where I could get off the exit ramp and decide what my plan was. Well, I didn't have a plan. It's just I want to save people, and here you go.
He knew lives were in danger as cars and homes were tossed around him.
And I can hear this wasn't the train noise. This was a jet engine noise. I was in the service around jets. And it just roaring, making your ears pop.
The police radio made quiet, so only David's voice was coming through.
And then Bergen Mercy gets hit. And it took the cars in the car lot, or in the parking lot back there, and it swirled them up into a pyramid. Now I understand what I'm up against.
He continued to relay what he saw as the tornado moved north along 72nd, closer to Dodge.
And I noticed there's no traffic. So I got the feeling that, hey, people are hearing this.
He was right. People were listening to him on their scanners at home, and radio and TV stations like ours also took his words straight to air. He continued to 72nd and Western, where the tornado started to circle around him.
I says, hey, if I'm supposed to do this, give me the strength to continue on. Because whatever happened, I had to accept it.
It was the first time he thought of his own life about 25 minutes in.
The thing is that I had to feel kind of a neutral at the time, because I don't know if I could have done all that stuff. To focus on it, I don't know.
Though a young officer, David had important experience. He served in Vietnam and survived a 3-day typhoon there. But these winds were about 200 miles an hour. He described buildings shattering around him, power poles snapping.
I got to back up and get the wires off because they're electric wires. Some of them are smoking, some of them are on fire.
He followed the tornado north to Maple and east to Benson, where he grew up.
Then was trying to come down again, going up, coming down, and there's stuff still coming out. And then I realized it looks like it's gone, and I said, car 360, I said, I'm at Benson Park and the tornado is dissipating.
David returned south to Bergen Mercy to help the injured.
Cars are everywhere with people bleeding, just loading them up, trucks and everything else. And everybody's taking their turn trying to get in there.
This photo was the only taken of David that day. By the hospital, this was about a half hour after the tornado lifted. He doesn't look rattled or afraid.
Going into this and go down and try to complete my assignment, there was no fear at that point. But in the back of my head, I got to keep praying to get me through this thing.
One headline described how he rode with the devil.
But you feel more like you were riding with God.
Oh, yes.
He also thinks a higher power kept the tornado away from a packed Exarban racetrack, and that it hit after school let out, breathtaking to see Westgate Elementary then and now. Like rebuilding, time also makes way for wisdom.
And you try to evaluate on where in the steps of life you are with all this behind you that makes you go on to the next step. My destiny was I was going to help people, whatever it took.
If David's uncomfortable in this light today, it's because he doesn't want it alone. There were many first responders. The National Guard helped. Parents rushed their kids to basements.
Just think of how many lives they saved. But everybody was given an instrument to do something that day.
But how he used his, we just can't know. How many lives were saved, how generations were preserved.
David and I sat down for an hour and a half, and we could only share so much on air, but we want his account of that day to be available in the public domain. So with this story on 3newsnow.com, you'll see additional links which include David's recollections. Please watch and take it all in. Omaha's history wouldn't be the same without David Campbell.
Incredible. Just one of those stories that, like, you knew that, like, he saved lives that day. Only 3 people lost their lives when there were thousands upon thousands of people that were hit by this tornado. It's amazing.
It is amazing, and he's still so humble, Joseph. I mean, sitting next to him, it's almost like he doesn't fully understand still how many people appreciate him. And he said, I'm just glad people are still interested in the story 48 years later.
And I hope people are interested in it decades down the road, because we can learn from the past. So when or if the next one eventually comes, we're all the more prepared for it.